Hi, my name is Avishek Parui and I'm the writer of the short story Purple Candles, which has appeared in the March issue of Anthem magazine. So I have been asked by the editors to talk a little bit about my story and in terms of the writerly inspiration, methods and craft and the ideas which inform the story. So those of you who read the story would know that I've used a very roundabout way of indirect narration. So we get to know the details much later and we get the impressions first. And the technique that I've used is commonly called delayed decoding. That is, the readers get to know much later the specifics, the specific data, the specific information, all that comes much later and we get the impressions first. So we get to know some very basic details and very basic information only when we're into the story, well into the story. So for instance, we never get to know the substance which has been talked about. We get to know the gender of the protagonist much later. And there are these other characters such as the grandfather from Chandigarh who never appear, but then they are very much a spectral, subtextual presence, as is the event of partition, which again is talked about in a very indirect way. So this is a story about memory, and that's something which interests me as an academic as well, because I work in memory studies, I research in the area. So I also try to use a storytelling method which appropriates memory as a technique, right? How do you tell, how do you narrate memory, how do you put memory into a story? What are the biases which inform when you remember something? And so for instance, in this story, the protagonist clearly has certain biases. She wants to talk over and over about certain things, and she hardly mentions certain other details which you'd expect to be quote-unquote normal. So the indirect method of storytelling, the sort of the delayed decoding quality which is there in the storytelling, and also the whole quality of making the story some kind of a memory narrative. These have been my three principal methods as a writer in the story. Again, we have impressions. The very title of the story, Purple Candles, the colors appear as impressions, which obviously are reflective of certain psychological conditions in the story as well. So my effort has been as a writer to get into the mind of the characters and to sort of narrate the mindscape of the characters rather than giving detailed descriptions about the landscape. But the landscape becomes less important, the mindscape becomes important, and sometimes we have some symbolic points, some symbolic spaces. For instance, the turnstile man, the man at the counter, the man at the turnstile, the security person who appears intermittently in the story is a very strong symbolic presence. So I hope you enjoy reading the story. I hope you enjoy the method I used to narrate the story about a very complex psychological and cognitive condition. And I look forward to being associated with Anthem in the times to come. Thank you for your attention.